Meeting will come to order, please. The notice requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act for this meeting have been satisfied. A copy of the annual meeting notice was sent to the press, the Down Beach Current, posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, the municipal website, and filed in the office of the city clerk. Please turn off all cell phones and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Becker,
Here.
Commissioner Amadeo.
Here.
Commissioner Blumberg.
Here.
We have with us today Mr. Kevin Frenia, who is our auditor, and I will turn the microphone over to you, sir.
Hi. As you said, I'm Kevin Frenier. I'm with the firm of Holman, Frenier and Allison. We just completed our first financial audit. We delivered it here tonight, so you'll all have a chance to review it. Just a real quick overview. Everything went very, very well. Lisa's staff, Richard's staff, they should all be commended on the job they did. We came in, new audits are sometimes a little more difficult, but they were very cooperative. Everything was ready, very professional. The opinions that you received is an unmodified audit opinion, which is the best audit opinion you can get. That means everything is in order. It's in compliance with generally accepted accounting principles. Your internal controls are in place, so you should be very happy with the report that you received. I'd be glad to answer any questions or concerns that you have, but I know you haven't had a chance really to review the audit. But I just wanted to come down and introduce myself and thank you for allowing us to do the work. And if there's anything I can help you with now or in the future, please feel free to give me a call. So, is there any questions or concerns? Or
Anybody? Marty?
Not this time.
yes, we did come in and we went through everything with Lisa and Richard in detail, and I think we had a very productive meeting. And so you're all ready to go. Once you accept the audit, we'll file it. We'll take care of all the state filings. You've received enough copies. You've received a disc. You'll be able to put the audit on your website. So we should be good to go.
I would imagine that on June 18th, our next meeting, we'll have the resolution to accept the audit, and then we'll get it forwarded to you, Kevin.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Again, thank you very much, and have a nice evening.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Scott, are you ready to talk about the license agreement? That's on the agenda this way. Sure. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, Mayor, you see on our items for discussion the lease agreement for 221 North Claremont Avenue, and what that entails is a brand-new home. A stairway has extended to and beyond the property line due to the increased elevation that we are now facing with many of our new homes. In this instance, the owners of the property are requesting a license agreement. You'll recall we have given some license agreements in other situations, notably outside the Margate Towers for that restaurant area, sometimes for improvements like gardening areas or structure. Here, this is for a stairway that goes slightly beyond the property line. Our ordinance allows you to go to the property line. They extend into what is the right-of-way line of Claremont Avenue. What is your pleasure on this, Mayor? Do you have any questions, or do you feel Mr. Rubin or anybody?
Scott, can I just say, I went out and looked at this, and the way the steps are oriented with regard to the sidewalk and the lawn, there would appear to be no trip hazard involved whatsoever, and it feels like a safe situation, so it looks okay.
I agree, Roger. I went out and looked at it also, and I don't really see a problem. Anybody else? Anybody else?
Yes, I'd like to comment. Being involved with the construction at that house, 221 Claremont, I will recuse myself from the vote. The only thing I wanted to state, as Scott stated, the height of the first floor, and with the people and the architect designing the house to conform with all the setbacks, so no variances were needed for the property, it slightly encroached on the right-of-way, I believe by 21.5 inches. not into the sidewalk, but just into the right-of-way. And just for the record, I will abstain from that vote.
Okay, so
So
if
if
you
you
do a
prepare
motion
what-
affirmative, I'll draw up the license and we'll attach some meets and bounds. And as the Commissioner said, it doesn't go into the sidewalk right away, but on that particular street, your right-of-way line is inside of the edge of the sidewalk going towards the house, if you follow me. So there is an encroachment there.
So you'll prepare paperwork, Scott?
If you guys give me the green light, yes.
Well, we can't vote here, so,
True.
okay. Can we?
Mike, I just have one thought, and unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to get by there. And not for this case specifically, but for future cases that come before us for licensing agreements, is there any value in referring them to the planning board first for an opinion? Or do we rely on Roger and his team for his opinion? It's just an idea, a thought. I don't know if it's right or wrong. I don't know if it's adding red tape that we don't want to add, but I don't know. Scott, what do you think about that? Is there a value
Well,
there for, and again, not on this one specifically, because this one seems pretty easy, but for cases where people are asking for licensing agreements as it relates to
Well,
land use, if you will.
It wouldn't hurt to consider that. I think this one's pretty minimal. He's got a
Right,
bottom tread.
that's what I'm saying, right?
It's, and there's a number of locations where stairs are already, older homes especially, where they encroach. I would say on this instance, that's not necessary. Future, if you want to make that a policy, you could.
Why don't we move on and we'll schedule something, we can discuss that.
Mayor,
Raj, what do you
Can I
think?
just respond to Maureen a little bit? I think it would add a layer of bureaucracy, and a lot of these things are time critical, but it might not be a bad idea to appoint maybe the chairman or a member of the planning board, let's say, to work with me, to decide whether a particular case rises to the level where it should go to the planning board.
I like that idea.
And if you like that, then I could take that to the planning board at the next meeting and suggest that.
I like that.
That's cool. That's acceptable to me. John? Okay, cool. Okay, we done?
Well, I wanted to add, and it's not on the agenda, but I thought that maybe we could briefly discuss, there's an issue that came up during the week related to, and I'm pretty sure we talked about it before, and I know Jimmy's not here, but it was related to lighting, excessive lighting on properties. And an email came in, and I know that there's been complaints, and I don't know if we had a chance to, if anyone in code enforcement or zoning has had a chance to review that. Is there something that we can take up now, or do we want to wait until the next meeting? Roger, I guess this question is for you.
I discussed that with Rich Deeney, and he was proceeding with certain diplomatic channels to deal with the matter at a personal level. And if that should fail, and we need to go to an elaborate ordinance resolution, it could be very expensive, and not only to develop an ordinance, because it's a very unusual kind of ordinance, but to administer it after it was developed. So I like the diplomatic channels, because it's only one case in the entire city. So I think we should let that operate.
Right, and so again, I agree with you there. My question is, are there other instances? Because I don't want to just target the one specific case, but because I remember a month or two ago, somebody complaining about their neighbor with a porch light that was,
This is the one, I think this is the one
same one.
which came back up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and one of the problems is some of the other instances are like Christmas lights, Debbie Devlin lights, things that we really don't mind,
Right.
that could get hurt by an ordinance.
Okay.
There's background to this, Maury. This has been going on for the public. There's a house on a street where the neighbors are very upset about the number of lights that this homeowner has. But the city is caught in a position, we have no lighting ordinance. We have no way to enforce anything here, and it's something that probably we should talk about in the future.
And I think maybe the case I was thinking about was the one on Nassau Avenue that pitted neighbors against each other. There was a big beacon shining across the lagoon into somebody's window, and
That was taken care of.
yeah. And so the idea is that we're handling them on a one-on-one basis, and I'm okay with that too.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
You're thinking about the spotlight.
The spot- well, that was
The spotlight's in the bedroom.
Correct.
So that was a few years ago.
Okay.
I've got a good long memory.
That's true.
You're going to start tonight. We'll go with department head reports. Fred, do you want to start? No. Okay. Roger?
Was that a definite no, or?
I have nothing to report at this time, thank you.
Mayor, just quickly, Commissioners, you know we have these 3 post-Sandy planning grant studies being done by Ponzio and Company for the bay and oceanfront bulkheads and decks and so forth, and the Amherst Avenue design of a possible promenade. Today we had one of our regular meetings of the committee that oversees these efforts. Ed was there, Scott was there, Rich Deeney, Rich Patterson, and they're on schedule with all the studies. They may actually finish early. They're not due to be finished till the end of September. They're almost done a bathymetric study of the entire bay area of Margate, which shows in 1-foot intervals all the depths of the bay currently, and that'll be very helpful in determining bulkhead and deck elevations, but also in our upcoming efforts to obtain dredging permits. That'll be immensely helpful. They've also done air photographs of the entire city, which they'll give us a composite of. And we talked about creating a citywide topographic, that they would create a citywide topographic map, which would be immensely helpful to Remington and Vernick and to all of our efforts with regard to future sewers, street improvements, and even lot site plans. So anyhow, this group will meet again on July 7th. There will be a lot more details given to us. At that meeting, we're going to determine when to have a presentation to Planning Board, the Commissioners, and possibly public airing of the findings preliminarily, and to get the input from the public. So we'll meet on July 7th and determine that. And I think things are going very well. We're very pleased with the work so far. And other than that, the Planning and Zoning Department is extremely busy, and there's a lot going on. A lot of new houses, a lot of house raisings are starting to come in because they're getting funds. That's about it.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you.
Scott, do you have anything else?
Yes, I have a number of things. The first one would be, we did have that meeting with Mr. Ponzio today, and that will be extremely beneficial for our efforts to dredge the back bays, because what he's doing is he's giving us all the elevations of the land underwater, which in turn enables an engineer to calculate the cubic yardage that has to be removed to make the water depth usable. So it's been very worthwhile. That's part of a state program where we got funding from the state of New Jersey, and that will certainly be an enormous help. Following up on that, as you know, our last meeting, we talked about dredging and trying to move forward, and with the new commissioner's involvement and his experience, I had a chance to speak with Mayor Palugi, who's been involved very much so with dredging for the borough of Avalon. He advised me he would love to talk to city officials in Margate and give us some of his knowledge and an outline of what they did in Avalon to move forward and dredge out their lagoons. And so I look forward to that day. I have his cell phone, and he's very willing. He said, I'll even come up to Margate. You can tell he's enthusiastic and very proud about it, which he should be, because it was a tremendous accomplishment. Because it's going to be a tough road for us in Margate to get that dredging accomplished. But if we work at it hard enough, it can happen. Also, changing topics, I gave you a draft letter that Mr. Rubin and Mr. Galantino had helped draft with regard to what we're going to do on our elevations. And Eddie has a comment on it. I have this draft letter. This will be until, I guess this will be until June of 2016, when yet again another map for elevations is coming out by and through FEMA. This map, or this elevation letter, allows us to use the more stringent, either from ABFE or else the preliminary work map. Ed, did you want to make a comment? I certainly appreciate it when you
Sure.
do.
It's interesting because we spoke about this earlier, and before I came over here, I stopped at my house, and there's a new house being built next to me. And there is a PK in the telephone pole illustrating elevation 11 on 88, which would have been the finished floor elevation requirement, the minimum finished floor elevation requirement along most of the lagoons, okay? If we go with first of all, generally I'm in favor of making the houses as high as we can make them for insurance and future damage. I have no problem. There's one potential problem if we go with the ABFE +1, which the state requires a 1-foot freeboard on any elevation for flooding. Generally, if we go to the ABFE +1, which will put us at 13 for a finished floor, and then we go 28 feet from that point,
Yeah.
okay,
Is it time to bring it up?
then we are raising the houses to a point where then they're going to be required to have a sprinkler system, okay, which is
I told him before.
not a small cost, okay? So that's just one negative that may happen from this. This new house will be high, and this is something I have to talk to Jimmy, but I know 35 feet is the magic number for putting a sprinkler system in, okay? I believe it's 35 feet from grade. In this case, it'll put the house at 36 feet, so that house then will have to be sprinkled, which means the cost of the sprinkler and additional water service, so there is definitely an impact to the properties. That could be dealt with if you're building a new house. If you're spending $1 million for a lot and $1 million for a house, you can absorb that. Where the other piece of this is, down at this end of town, actually the other side of Washington Avenue, almost that whole area was a V-zone. It's also the lowest section of town. You will have a first floor elevation 8 feet above, 9 feet above the street level, because that whole area was a V-zone and it was a 12. So those are the areas we really have to look at with this. I'm still in favor of taking houses up as high as we can, but and Scott and I had this conversation that it's not so much the new houses, the houses that are rebuilt. It's the old houses that are raised that will really, there's going to be some issues. There'll be some issues. So we have to look at this. And then the question is, do we need that 1-foot freeboard on the ABFE? Are we really required? And that was a question I was going to ask you, Scott. Are we really required to have that?
Well, that's the state guidelines. I mean, technically speaking, these maps we're referring to are not officially adopted by the state. They are works in progress. Actually, the map that controls is the 1983 map. That's the official map. But we, under that model ordinance, are allowed to use the more stringent. We can reference these ABFEs or the preliminary work. But Ed's concerns are legitimate. It is going to have a significant impact, particularly where it's an old house that they're raising them up. But the alternative is we jeopardize our CSR rating. The lady told Jimmy Galantino, and I know this to be a fact, that we could lose, it would end up being about 700 points, which would affect us by possibly losing 5% of our discount that is applied citywide. So it's a balancing of which way do you want to go?
And in addition to that, we're only a few hundred points from going to the next level where we'll be at 30% discount. So we don't want to lose the points. I'm inclined to believe the good outweighs the bad, but I just want to make sure everyone's aware of the bad.
Well,
Okay.
I agree, I'm sorry. I agree with what,
no, you go.
I agree that there's a concern, but it's not as bad as it might be because, first of all, the $1 million houses, it's a little piece of a very large house. The area down below Washington Avenue, for the most part, it's a duplex, triplex, quadruplex zone, which permits 30 feet already above first floor. Most of those houses are not single-family. Most of those are not elevations. There are few elevations down in that area, and they're all going to be, when they're multifamily, they can also afford to put that into the overall cost. And according to Jimmy, we don't have the luxury of waiting any longer. We got to implement this thing right away. We're within days of some kind of jeopardy from this FEMA threat.
And like I said, I just want to make sure everyone's aware of the impacts.
I agree.
Because it will change the flavor of the architecture. Okay, it'll change the flavor to a small degree of portions of the town. Maybe that, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just I think everyone should be aware of it. And a perfect visual example, if you want to, 342 North Rumson, there's a big or a piece of pink tape with that PK that will give you a feeling for where 11 is, where 13 will be, and it's a little bit. It takes you back a little bit, but I don't know if it's necessarily bad. I just want to make sure everyone's aware that we're going to see a change. And like Scott and I said earlier, on an old house being raised. Now, if it's a rancher, it's really not going to be a big deal other than setbacks, there's steps. They're going to have to figure out how to deal with that. But,
Just so I understand, that old house that you're talking about that's going to be raised, it can't be sprinklered. How, you're going to price them out of the raising of that house?
Well, they'll have to be.
the only problem, the only house that would have to be sprinklered if it's an old house that was 3 stories. Okay? And there's not a lot of old houses that are 3 stories.
All right, I understand.
Okay.
I have a question. Time frame. Can any of you gentlemen tell us? You say we're under the gun, but what
Jim-
exactly is the
I think
deadline?
Jimmy told me the other day, which is tomorrow. He has to have a definitive ruling, which would be the letter from Scott.
Mayor, may I?
You may.
Yes, thank you. Ed, as we approach the time where we have to revisit our master plan,
Yes.
which would be the actual document that we would eventually live by for the next 10 years, this minor change in wording basically will help us, the way I look at it, for a period of time for maybe 6 or 8 months. And as we move forward with the master plan and we start to see problems arising, then we could address them in the master plans with ordinance changes. Am I correct in saying that?
Well,
So this is, see, what I think our building, inspector Jim Galantino wants to do is have the residents of Margate benefit now by the point system, which will keep the impact of and cost of flood insurance down for our residents. And there's also a benefit for the city with it through.
I'm 100% with him on that. Like I said, we're this close to going to the next level.
Right.
So we can't afford to lose 700 or 800, whatever the points are.
Right.
We cannot afford to lose.
So if we move on this, and then as we approach our master plan, it'll give us a period of 6 or 8 months that as we encumber problems, we'll know what we're looking for when we actually do that study itself.
Yes.
Okay, that answers my question.
Thank you. All right, then what do we need to do if tomorrow is June 5th?
I'm going to sign the letter, and that's our opinion that we've come up with. But I felt it was so important
Okay.
that the 3 of you should be
Fine.
made aware of this, And there are pros and there's cons,
Okay.
but I think the pros probably outweigh the cons.
And you're- Send over, please.
Done.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you have anything else, Scott?
You had asked me at the last meeting to reach out to Stu Farrell as being a consultant. We did that. He is very willing. He has been very much involved with Margate through the years, actually the last 15 to 20 years. And I think at some point in time, maybe with Rich or one or more of you, sit down with him. I know next Tuesday, there is a dredge committee that has been assigned the task to help the state change the dredge regulations. And they meet out at his office, what is it called, Nacote Creek, at Stockton, once a month. Representatives, and Eddie has been going to these meetings, where we're trying to get them to make dredging easier or cheaper. So for instance, one significant thing is they're about to knock out the winter flounder prohibition of dredging for the months of January, February, March. Now that may not sound like a lot, but believe me, that's very significant because it gives you 3 of the worst months, winter months. You are not allowed to dredge now. So if that regulation changes, that's big. But they've got a whole slew of them that they're working on to get the state to make it easier for communities like Margate to dredge. So there's some momentum here, and it's a good thing, but we have to keep it up. So next Tuesday, if one or more of you want to go, or I think, Ed, you're going to go for sure, and you confer. And again, it rose out of the South Jersey, our coalition, when we fought that V-zone designation. They're now into trying to change these dredging regulations and make them more user-friendly, I guess would be the word. So that's it. That's you have to have enough.
Thank you, Scott.
Done talking.
Mr. Deeney.
I'm just going to mention one thing tonight. Lisa mentioned at the last meeting that we would be going out to bid for our notes, which come due in July, I believe July 20th, and we will be planning to do that. As you know, we won't keep notes forever. We ultimately will do permanent financing. And the plan is well in place, and it has been for a long time, to do the permanent financing for us for virtually all that we have, but it will be done this time next year prior to the notes becoming due. So we'll have one more round of notes on our outstanding debt, and we'll be financing on a permanent basis that debt the next year. And the reason why 2016 has been chosen is because we have a long-term plan working with our previous auditor and financial advisor, whereas we keep our debt as level as possible, and our debt will be, previous debt will be reducing significantly over the next 2 years, and we'll make up for it this year with the notes. We'll pay down a portion of those notes this year, and then we'll go to permanent financing next year, which will level out our debt. And I just want to assure the commissioners that this is a long-term plan. I'd be glad to go over it with you, with the assistance of the finance director at any time. But we're in good shape from a debt standpoint of being able to keep level financing going into the future. Thank you.
Chief Wilson.
We are geared up for the Latour to Down Beach this weekend, which is Sunday. So you'll see quite a few bicycles on Atlantic Avenue. We've covered that very, successfully in the past, and I anticipate doing it again. And I'm happy to report our liaison for accreditation of the police department from the Rogers Group, Dan Walsh, was in today, and we are on target to become an accredited agency in August.
Very good.
Very good, guy. Lisa?
The only thing I'd like to point out is that on the agenda for your consideration is to authorize an amendment to our 2015 budget to include a grant that we received from the state DEP for clean communities. We've received it for the last several years Total amount is $32,723.86, and although it's amending the budget, we're increasing our appropriation, but there is also an offsetting increase to the revenue, so there really is no impact to the overall budget because of the offset. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Lisa. Frank?
Tomorrow, we'll be shutting off the fountains on the parkway. We have to clean them out from all this wind and everything. The leaves are coming off the trees and actually clogging the pumps up, and they're not working properly. So if anybody wants to know why, that's why we have to do it. We were over to Historical Society this week. We cleaned out the building, the attic and everything. We removed the safes. We also removed all the bricks with the names on them and put them in storage in the Public Works yard. This week on the beach, not many people were down there, but we were, and the beaches are in great shape. Even with the storms and the wind and everything, our beaches are huge, much bigger than I've ever seen them, really, in my life. It's just unbelievable. And Sunday is the tour down beach. We are involved with the trash and the recycling and the electrical hookup and stuff like that. And it's just a routine job we have, and we'll be taking care of that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Frank. Ed?
Okay. The 2015/16 road program, which is the one we're going to begin the design. We have an engineering committee meeting, I believe, on the 18th. At that point, Frank has provided me with a list of many roads that need to be done because of utility issues. At that meeting, we should be able to narrow it down. I have done a cost estimate for all of the roads, so then we can kind of pick and choose and see what we can afford to do. So that'll get moving. The municipal building, this municipal building, the Phase 2, we're scheduling a pre-con. That contract was awarded to Falaska. They also have a little bit of work to do from Phase 1, which they'll do when they come in for Phase 2. It was the breaching of the boiler. So that project is all new boilers, new controls, new condensate vacuum pumps, new condensate tank, all the electrical conduits. So we'll get the pre-con going on that. The Ventnor Avenue Streetscape project, which is funded primarily by a grant with some local funding. We are receiving those bids on June 10th at 11 o'clock. Okay. The municipal building emergency generators, there's 2 generators. We received those bids. They came in too high. We only had one bidder, and we asked him, when we spoke to the bidder, they just threw a number at it. Apparently, the electrical contractors are extremely busy, which is kind of perplexing to me at this time in this region, but we want to re-advertise that on the 9th of June. I believe there's a resolution requesting that we reject the bids and a resolution authorizing the re-advertisement. We would then open the bids on June 24th. Hopefully we'll have more bidders and they will sharpen their pencil. We have 3 or 4 projects: the Decatur Avenue vehicle ramp, well number 9 redevelopment, and the Ventnor Avenue Parkway Island irrigation system. Those have all been awarded, but construction will not start until after the season is over. The 2014/15 road program, the project is advertised today, actually, with the bid openings on June 24th. That work will start in the fall. We wanted to give them plenty of time to bid it, hopefully to get good prices. As well as the 2014 state aid program, which is Amherst Avenue from Vendome to Washington. That project was advertised for bid on May 20th. The bid opening is on June 10th also. The Amherst Avenue, that's the waterfront park. We're not doing anything right now on that. The municipal building playground upgrade. Frank's guys went in, took out all the old absorbent, flooring around that. The system that we are going to purchase is a modular tile system, so that if one gets damaged, you can pop it out and put a new one in. We requested quotes from 2 contractors to do the subgrade stone and gravel that needs to go in there, as well as the installation of the tiles. We received 1 bid back. The second one rejected, said they were too busy, they didn't want to do it, and we forwarded that stuff to Rich to authorize that.
I just got that today, but I didn't get any information on how that bid came in relative to what you expected it to come in.
Okay, I'll make sure we get more of that.
Before we award with 1 bidder, I want to make sure that we know what your estimate was.
The number came, just so you know, the number came in less than we anticipated, so we were happy with that. The 2013/14 program is done, the road program. There's some punch list items that still need to be done, but essentially, they were able to get the final street paved the Friday before Memorial Day, and now there's just a little bit of work that needs to be done. The Washington Avenue repurposing, we went through, we had conversations with the electric company on how we should service that building. One gentleman felt different than what they originally told us. We have subsequently got them to acquiesce to what we bid, so we're good there. There is a progress meeting on the 11th of June. Part of what Frank has done will help get that progress moving, get the process moving. We have seen many of their cut sheets for their project, for all the products. So as soon as they're all approved, they will roll in. But we have requested a hard schedule for them for the progress meeting, so everyone will have that. And I'm sorry?
On that project, I don't know whether it's been said publicly here or not, but internally, the police chief has met with a number of people, including yourself, and there is a plan in place internally for moving construction equipment and getting people to be able, vehicles to be able to still maintain access to Wawa and exit from Washington Avenue. So there is a plan in place that I don't know whether it's totally been coordinated with the contractor yet, but...
What we did was we expressed the results of that meeting with the contractor and requested they submit an actual paper plan to us on how they're going to implement what we requested. But essentially it entails blocking off a small section of the parking lane, essentially the piece in front of the Washington Avenue building, with some mechanism, and we've asked them to tell us how they want to do that, and they will be able to use that to pull in and pull out, remove materials, put dumpsters, bring their concrete trucks in when they have to do the concrete on for the flooring. So it should be a minimal disruption to the whole operation of the Wawa, and the only ones that will be displaced, unfortunately, will be the landscapers won't be able to sit on the front steps of the old Washington building to eat their lunch. So, we had a meeting with South Jersey Gas, just a general progress meeting on, I believe it was Tuesday. They have approximately 26, I believe they said, 26 residential services they have not been able to convert over yet. They're still trying to schedule. We have asked them to keep the disruption to a minimum. Most of the services will be very minimal disruption. There are a few intersections where they have to tie in the new line, abandon the old line, and at those intersections, they have been able to keep one lane open, but they do have to close one lane. So they're trying to get them out of the way, but the problem is until they get the services connected, they can't abandon the old line until they get the new. So they have been very diligent in trying to get these people to schedule the changeovers. And on the dredging, as Scott stated, I will be attending a meeting of the what I refer to as the Dredge Committee. It's a committee that was assigned to rewrite the dredge manual, the permitting manual. And the DEP has been actively involved in this process. That meeting is on Tuesday. There is a meeting of the Coastal Coalition, which now has moved its focus towards the dredging issue. Now that the flood map issue is relatively stable, we're now focusing on the dredging issue. There was also there was a white paper issued regarding one of the disposal sites, the old Gateway site, and there have been conversations with the owner of a local marina offshore who does have an approved disposal site. I met with him. The amount of land, or his site's capacity is very small. However, it probably could be enlarged depending on what happens at the operation there. But that's another, those are two land-based disposal sites that we're looking at. There are several other water-based sites that we're looking at. And we're also meeting with there's a joint planning committee meeting with the Army Corps and the DEP, myself, Jim Rotella, in reference to the $130,000 grant we received to do thin film distribution of dredge materials. And one of the sites that we picked is on the other side of Pork Island, up the Intercoastal Waterway. It's actually a parcel in Egg Harbor Township. There's that meeting to meet with the DEP and the Army Corps of Engineers to get as many questions answered on what we need to do to make that project real. I am going to take that opportunity to also talk about these water-based disposal sites that we have talked about with Scott and myself, the Coastal Coalition people, just to bounce it off them to see whether, they shriek in horror or whether they smile and shake their head. And it involves filling in areas that were once dredged, that were once meadows and wetlands, now is just open water. It involves something like to that effect. So I'll see what they have to say at that meeting, if I get some input from them. And that's it.
Question. The Washington Avenue project.
Yes.
Part of that project is a demolition of the Historical Society, which is why
Yes.
Frank and his people were in there. There's no demolition after June 15th. Are they aware of that, or what is the schedule for that demolition?
That's what I'm asking them for their schedule. Apparently, there's asbestos shingles on that building that are under the vinyl siding. They claim they didn't know about that. I asked them, just tell me what the price is, and we'll discuss it. But it's a minor issue. It's that really doesn't need to be made a big issue. But that they're going to have to bring in a subcontractor to bag. Essentially, what they require you to do with those shingles is you have to double bag them, and then they put them in the same landfill that they put everything else. It really makes no sense, in all honesty, because the bulldozer is 2 bags is not going to stop a bulldozer when they run over it with the bulldozer. But that's what they make them do. So that's the only thing. And it's probably going to be a one-day job. So.
Will that be before June 15th or after?
I'm sorry?
Will that be before June 15th or after the summer?
I would hope it's before.
Okay.
But I will.
Now, someone told me, and I don't know this to be true, but maybe you can get them to check it out. They said that they have dumpsters that they can put a liner in, put your asbestos shingles in there, and they cover it up and pull the whole dumpster away.
That's one. There is a mechanism that way. Yes.
Now,
absolutely.
my next question or comment: at your meeting with the gas company, did you express our concern about our roads?
We were very direct with the gas company, and they seemed very receptive. But one thing that was stressed to them is they should take a little more time with their temporary dredge restoration so that they don't have to keep redressing it. Instead of just backfilling and rolling it with a wheel, they should And now, Lantier has had a roller on site or a jumping jack on site, Kylie has not. But we expressed our displeasure with the conditions. And then the other piece, and thank you for reminding me, we asked them to develop a list of every street they've touched and what their intended final restoration is for those streets.
Thank you.
And with that said, that gives us the ability to review and then go back and deal with them one-on-one with each street. And the other thing Ed has always said, in the past, he's brought up the point that we would have the ability that under our road program, where we already have it counted in for the paving, that we could swap out streets. So there will be streets that are in not so bad condition that we'll have the ability, depending on how many street openings there are there, to go curb to curb and modernize that street that might have been only 15 or 20 years old. So it was a very good meeting, and the gas company took the blunt of the criticism, and they were going to pass it on to the contractor. It's the contractor's responsibility. They're getting paid to do the job, and they're going to enforce the job.
Good news. Thank you, Ed, again. All right. Maury, you have anything?
Yeah, I have two things. Scott and Ed, back to Dr. Farrell. Would it make sense, could we, since he's willing to work with us, would it make sense for us to develop a brief criteria for him of what it is that we would like him to help us with, maybe 5 items, and then say to him, okay, and I think as a commission we need to pick a figure, say $7,500. So if we're agreeable, if we think he can work to that, here are the 5 things we want you to focus on. Give us a proposal not to exceed $7,500 so that we can get him on board. But we can't just say give us a proposal and not have an idea of what it is we're looking for him to do. Scott, does that make sense? And can you work with Ed to do that?
You're actually getting pretty good at this. That's exactly what he said to me this morning. I need to sit down with your city officials, get me an idea as to what you want us to do. And when I say us, remember, it's part of Stockton University, which is I think, a double plus for us. And he said, once you guys tell me what you want me to do, I can do it. He's very easy to work with. So maybe next week we'll sit down with him, or whatever way they
Perfect.
give him an outline, and then he'll give us a proposal.
Perfect.
And I will say this too, dealing with them in the past, they're very, very reasonable.
Right, good. Okay, perfect. That keeps that moving forward. The second thing that I wanted to offer is if you haven't had a chance to go by the Margate Library, go by the library. The job there is phenomenal. It looks beautiful, and I wanted to thank Jim and his staff for that new entrance. I think it's a great improvement for the city of Margate, so I wanted to get that on record.
Thank you. We designed it.
I didn't know that, but congratulations to Remington, Vernick, and Warburg.
Yes.
Thank you. It's really, really nice. It's just a great
Came out,
addition.
and the contractor did a good job. It was, the contractor was, I was real pleased with how he did that, so.
Okay, and then the last thing is, Ed, this is for you, if you could, and maybe you already have. I know that that Calvi does generators, and I don't know if they were interested. I know that the guy is local, so maybe just reach out to them specially to give them a chance.
Well, Calvi was our only bidder.
Oh, okay.
Okay, however,
Didn't know that.
however, when we advertised it, we gave it 3 weeks, but for some reason, they didn't pick it up. None of the, so, we had to get the word out to Calvi, to Scalfo, and Calvi ran in, picked it up, and he was the only one that even took the shot. But when he handed the bid in to Joe Johnson to open it, he said he knew we were wasting time because the number was high. So we did speak with them. We spoke with several other contractors and told them, please get the bids, take them out, sharpen your pencil. This is a real project we need to get done.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. John?
Good.
I'm good, too. At this point, we'll open the public comment. 3 minutes on anything that's been discussed here today.
Sewell, 22 West Drive. Quick question for the solicitor. What is the percentage of state, federal, and Margate money for the dredging projects?
What is the, I'm the mayor, so I asked, I don't understand the question.
Okay, I'll repeat the question slowly. How much denarii, how much money does the federal government contribute, state government, and Margate taxpayers? What's their percentage in these dredging projects?
I don't have any dollar figure yet.
We're not that far along. There is no project yet.
When there is a project, is there federal money that'll cover 90% of it or 80% of it?
At this point, we don't know whether there is or not. We're going to pursue it, but we don't know if there's any specific programs right now for federal money. Generally, federal money will only work if we can prove that it was a result of Sandy, or if the Army Corps is dredging the designated intercoastal waterway. Okay, private property, state-owned property, non-ICW, the state generally gets involved as well as the local entity. But as far as a percentage, we haven't got to the horse trading yet.
Then it's possible that Margate could be on the hook for 100% of this dredging?
No, just residents from 20 West Drive.
22.
Oh, sorry.
John doesn't care, he's got his neighbor.
John, just to let you know, so far the only money we received is federal money. It's $130,000. It's to do a small section of Amherst Avenue, primarily near the Washington Avenue Pier, to try to utilize or to experiment with the thin film disposal. But that is federal money, and that is what the meeting I am having is for.
And our grant man is working on these possible grants from the federal and the state?
Constantly.
Thank you.
Yes, John, before you leave, there is a pool of money that was escrowed back in the 90s that
Yes.
Ed Wahlberg's aware of, that Senator Gormley at the time fought to get a portion of our back bay, especially near Sunset Lagoon and what's the other? Oriental and Sunset. It's $954,000 that was put in a dedicated fund in the state DEP. The issue's been for several years, because I worked with Ed along with the DEP for 6 years while I was in the Assembly, to get that money to be able to utilize and clear those entrances to those lagoons and the center of those lagoons so that they would be navigable. And the problem was, we could never get the approval for a spoil site. In other words, what the material that was being dredged out, to make it financially feasible, would have to go across the bay at the closest location. So there was a lot of things put on the table, but we weren't successful because the people across the bay, that the estate that owns the property, wants a number way in excess of what the state of New Jersey real estate people have assessed. That value of the property was around 400 and some thousand, and they want $1 million plus for it.
Right.
So the state was willing to buy that, and we would have that $954,000 or $58,000 to do that immediate dredging, which is only a small portion. And then, the committee itself was looking, because I attended one meeting, pursuing venues, both, not locally as much as federal, and to be able to prove that the silt that's in there, a lot of it has come from, the ocean side, and with the force of Sandy pushing it up in our intercoastal areas. So it's a work in progress. Nothing has been formalized, and I can assure you that committee's working to get the money to keep the businesses open on the bay side.
I'll sleep better tonight.
Everybody else, everybody had orders, this was really meeting. Anyone else?
Sharon Simon, 424 North Thurlow Avenue. Frank, your comments about the beach from your lips to the NJDEP. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there a motion to close public comment, please?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Amadeo?
Yes.
Commissioner Blumberg?
Yes.
We will, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Mayor Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Amadeo?
Say yes, John. Say yes, John.
Many times.
Say yes.
Up here.
Say yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Blumberg?
Yes.
The meeting is